Now, the trend in Australia is a credit to government and community action. We've all played a role, of course. I first told you there were tentative signs of a flattening curve 10 days ago, and since then the evidence has become strong and clear. Remember, these numbers reflect actions taken a fortnight ago and more, not the silly over-policing we've seen over the past few days. Shutting pubs and restaurants, banning crowd events, having people work from home, banning overseas visitors and putting those coming home into isolation. These are the measures. That's what's worked, and good on all of us for delivering it. It doesn't mean we're done. It doesn't mean we can't have breakouts in the future, but it does mean we've given ourselves a chance of controlling this virus rather than having it control us. So it's time to get more strident about some of the overreach. I've had a go in the past at the unnecessary rush to close schools down. Our kids should be at school now, but they're being actively shunned by governments and school authorities right across the nation. I desperately hope they welcome children back to school in term 2, perhaps with temperature checks or other measures, but I fear many school authorities have already decided they don't want the responsibility of students for term 2. A decision that deepens, I think, the social and economic crisis and runs counter to the current advice from the Chief Medical Officer. And what about the social distancing rules? We've seen beaches closed in New South Wales, Queensland and Victoria. On the weekend, we had the ridiculous situation where beaches were closed in Sydney's south and east but open up on the North Shore. Former Premier Bob Carr spoke to me from the Eastern Beach perspective on Friday.
I think you can trust people. And I think it does send a positive message if you tweak the rules and say, look, our beaches are a great, as I put it, a great resource for mental and physical health. We want a fit population, mentally and physically. If you go onto the sands as an individual, take care that you're not caught up in conversation with others, waiting to plunge into the waves, running along the beach, there is no risk of spreading this virus as a result of that behaviour.
So what happened on the weekend? People dipped their toe in the water on the northern beaches, perhaps some extras from where the beaches had been closed. And before you know it, there are people on social media complaining and authorities stepped in.
I'm down here at Manly Beach at the moment, and as you can see behind me, the beach has just recently been closed. And we have heard that message again from the state government today. Please take this seriously, and that's being reflected here. New South Wales Police has shut this beach. We can still see a few people on the promenade, but the promenade, the sand and the water have all been closed.
This stuff is over the top, isn't it? It's the sort of policing, obviously, that can add little, if anything, to downward pressure on infections, but could actually be counterproductive by building up our resistance, not to the disease, but to the social distancing measures themselves, as Professor Peter Collignon explained here last week.
My concern is that if we overdo this now, and, for instance, put in measures saying you can't be outside even if you're more than 2 metres away from other people, that will really cause a lot of resentment. And if people start rebelling against this, the worst time to do it is in winter. So I think we need to be very careful not to send mixed messages. If we're saying it's safe to be 2 metres away from people, which I think is correct because of droplets and etc., in a supermarket or in the shopping centres, why can we say it's not okay to be 2 metres away from other people outside?
Now, over the weekend, across all the states, hundreds of fines were handed out to people breaking the rules. Now, a big house party? Sure, fine them. But many of these have been ridiculous and heavy-handed. What about the case from Melbourne over the weekend when a 17-year-old learner driver was on a lesson with her mother and was pulled over by the police? Here she is with 3AW's Neil Mitchell.
You would have felt good about that, Hunter, see the lights in the rearview mirror.
Yeah, I was just shocked because I obviously hadn't done anything wrong, or so I thought. I was just really stressing.
All right, Cherie, what happened next?
Well, and she just come up and said, where do you live? And we said, oh, in Hampton. And she just said, oh, well, you're driving. Anyway, we were too far from home and that we would cop a fine.
Yep, unnecessary travelling, unnecessary driving, and that fine was for $1,600. I kid you not. 2 family members in a car. I keep talking about common sense. That's all we need, surely. We know the measures are working. We need to be careful about relaxing them. But common sense is vital and always way too uncommon. Instead of this craziness, we need to be debating ways to get the country moving again. Whether it happens next week, next month or in the spring, we need some smart ideas and preparations to get our kids back to school, to allow restaurants and bars to open with some form of social distancing rules, to get people back into the shops, perhaps with some practical measures in place too. That's where we need the imagination. That's where we need the energy, not chasing down 17-year-old learner drivers.